Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. This is your DC Spotlight for the week of February 7th, 2023. Interesting week. Not a ton of books. Lazarus Planet event continues. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe not. On a more exciting note, the 1 Minute War continues in Flash. And we get what feels like the final issue of Monkey Prince, even though there's one issue to go. So overall, I thought it was a decent week, Rocky. What'd you think?
Well, I thought it was okay, and what surprised me the most, I was I should clarify that I was the majority of the comic books I'm disappointed with, just a slight majority again, if I want to be technical, but my favorite book, which I'll get to, which was actually Static. Season 2 is my book of the is a spoiler alert. It's going to be my pick of the week. Static, ahead of Lazarus Planet, which I continue to be disappointed with, and I didn't mind Flash. Flash was enjoyable, but it wasn't my favorite. But it was a pleasant surprise with Static, with Vide Ayala, and the art's fantastic. So yeah, not. Again, not bad, but I'm going to be curious to hear some of your thoughts as we go through them.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit underwhelmed as well. So let's go ahead and dive in. As I mentioned, 1 Minute War, this is part 3. It continues in Flash 792, written by Jeremy Adams, pencils by Roger Cruz, inks by Wellington Diaz, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Rob Lee. I'll talk about the art first. So the Roger Cruz art, for the most part, has been fantastic. Ever since I saw Cruz's art, I think he came on the scene last year with Robin. It's been very good. This is not his best work. And while I say that, the art is still very, very good. I especially like the youthfulness he brings to the art, because this issue is mostly Bart Allen Impulse and Wally West Ace, the younger of the two Wally West. And they actually infiltrate the Fraction mothership, I guess, for lack of a better term. But one thing I noticed, it's really big panels, and it's kind of in your face art, but in a way that feels more of an animated style, a little bit more simple, a little less on the detail, and not quite as polished as I've seen him before, which again, it's fine. His sense of storytelling is still very, very good. It just doesn't come across as dynamic as I've seen his art before, especially in some of those fight scenes that we had in Robin. So I don't know if it's just because there's more here, in terms of characters and aliens and things that aren't as well established. Not exactly sure I can put my finger on it, but I wasn't blown away by the art, but it's still very, very good. The story itself, as I said, a lot of it takes place inside the Fraction ship between the two heroes here, Impulse and Kid Flash. And what they discover is pretty interesting. They attempt to disable the ship by stealing the battery, by stealing its power source. And when they break the battery open, there's actually a person in there. So we know from reading the special that the Fraction derive a lot of their power from the Speed Force itself. So I can only assume that this person that they rescued is, basically a Flash from another world, if you will. Somebody who has access to the Speed Force, and in turn, they are draining the Speed Force from this person. They also confront Miss Murder, right? That's her name. And we find out, as Jeremy mentioned to me, I think it was on Twitter, we do find out how she's able to see and hear with that crazy contraption over her face. And the answer is she doesn't. She can't see or hear. She hunts by thought. She experiences the world telepathically. So that's an interesting way to answer that question. And it makes sense why she can see and hear and whatnot. It's all done by thought. It doesn't help me with the design at all. I still can't stand the design. But at least he took the time to explain it. So I'll give him kudos for that. Overall, I'm really enjoying this event. There's a sense of menace. There's a sense of mystery, curiosity. Even though we've learned a lot about kind of the motivations for the Fraction, there's still a lot to be learned there, just in terms of will they realize that they've gone too far? Initially they were only attacking planets or only harvesting, I'll use that word, only harvesting planets that didn't have other life forms to save their own planet. And then eventually they kind of became corrupted by the lifestyle, I guess you could say, that they had managed to establish for their people. And now they kind of see themselves as above everybody else, and that's how they justify what they're doing. So can our heroes make them realize the error of their ways? That remains to be seen. And then how do you fight somebody who manages to use technology to basically turn their entire population into flashes, into people that have access to the Speed Force and weaponize it? So there are big stakes here. There's big consequences. It's a big event. It feels very worthy of the Flash family, especially the way Jeremy Adams has set it up with this weaponized Speed Force. So yeah, pretty interesting. I'm really enjoying it. Kudos to Jeremy Adams and the creative team. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Jeremy Adams, he's been doing this. I mean, he's pretty much spearheaded this entire event himself, and I think he's done a reasonably good job here. I do think that I wish he would have been given. I don't mind Roger Cruz's art. I just think it wasn't even close to what I consider to be A-lister, which I think Jeremy Adams should have been given just a higher profile artist, to be blunt. But it works. I mean, it's serviceable, and I'm excited. I'm invested in the story, so I'll give Jeremy Adams that. And so far, I've been enjoying this a lot more better than Lazarus Planet because it's fun, and I enjoy the Flash family. I love the Flash family. I love here Impulse and Wallace West. They got good rapport here. They want to go and they want to steal some of the vehicles that the Fraction are using because they discover that the Fraction have created a force field around their headquarters, which is located elsewhere in the city, and the only way to get through the force field that the Fraction has set up is by actually utilizing one of their own vehicles, which somehow, for whatever reason, through probably a technological link to the Speed Force, they can penetrate the headquarters. And just coincidentally, Barry Allen, after being consoled by the fact that he's consoling Iris, and Iris is technically dead. I mean, she's dead, but we're all frozen in. Everyone's frozen in time. Bearing in mind that by this issue, we're probably only in the 30-second mark, maybe 40-second mark of this 1-minute war, which leads into again a minor criticism. I don't feel that the conveyance of the fact that this is only taking place in less than a minute, that hasn't been adequately conveyed. This feels like standard time. It because everyone is existing and acting within the Speed Force, this plays out like, as a reader, I'm not getting a sense that this is taking place in 60 seconds, and I should. And I've said before, I'm not sure how that you could convey that, but this should have been done artistically in some way. It hasn't been, and again, I guess I'm maybe nitpicking, but I like the story. But in terms of, do I feel that this is a war taking place in 60 seconds? Hard no, I don't. I don't feel that that's happening that quickly, and I should feel some sense of that, and I don't. But I do feel the stakes nonetheless. I do feel that a lot is at stake, particularly at the end here when we discovered that these organic conduits that are being have connections to the Speed Force. Not only do the Fraction want to apprehend them, namely all the members of the Flash family, but they also want to apprehend all the metahumans. Miss Murder is a metahuman that was clearly, essentially, probably obtained in an world of the Dark Universe. And at the end here, it's discovered that Superman, Captain Atom, and I think that looks like Gorilla Grodd has been sort of apprehended, and of course they're frozen, I guess, stasis. They're sort of in some sort of Speed Force stasis because technically, they can't they don't have a connection to the Speed Force. And I like the fact that that Superman himself is also vulnerable, because Superman doesn't get his speed from the Speed Force. He gets it just because he's a hard and fast Kryptonian. So I like that Jeremy Adams is aware of that, and it plays itself out well here. I thought this had humor. I thought this had action. I like the fact that Miss Murder's power set is more telepathy. The dog thing, I don't know why she's got two animal creatures. I guess she's a hunter. I was hoping that her power set would be a little bit more complicated than just telepathy when she hunts with her thoughts, because she does seem to have super strength and agility, but does she just have martial artists? Like, what, does she have any other powers? And she doesn't. But again, it's not bad. I'm having fun, and I'm really curious to see where this goes next.
Yeah, I'm really excited. He's set up a very cool event here, and yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. Okay, up next we have Batman and the Joker Deadly Duo #4, story and art from Mark Silvestri, colors by Arif Prianto, letters by Troy Petrie. So this is basically one big action packed issue that all takes place on a train. What are your thoughts here?
Uh, this was actually, I thought this was really action packed. I felt that this had me. This had me glued. I was glued to this comic right from the beginning, right to how it was going to end, because the this Donald Sims, it ends up that the true villain, the true villain behind the scenes here is this individual by the name of Donald Sims, who is a was a, I guess, a former billionaire like Bruce Wayne, whose daughter was ultimately killed by the Joker, and there's a flashback showing how that has taken place. And sorry, here I'm just I don't know why. I'm just trying to do two things at once here. In any event, Donald Sim wants to get revenge on the Joker for what happened to his daughter, and he basically sets up a trap for Batman and the Joker to basically solve. And I love it. It deals with a bullet train of Gotham, and that Donald Sim basically traps them, puts them on the train, and he basically has the train going from traveling at supersonic speed to Martha Wayne Memorial Station, and before it gets there, they have to unload. They have to get it down to to the weight of the train when it's empty. And of course, there's 200 people on the train. How the hell do you get rid of all that weight? And the way Batman does it is actually quite interesting. He burns portions. They throw all the furniture out. They try to get rid of all the dead weight. Of course, the only way to really do it is to get rid of the people. And ultimately, it is through the combination of Batman's ideas and the Joker's idea in terms of how to get rid of some of the weight off the train that they end up successfully getting rid of some of the weight. Unfortunately, that doesn't bode well to some of the passengers, thanks to the Joker's ideas, but it actually worked out quite well. And I really like the way that Mark's writer and artist Mark Silvestri, the way he tells this story, because what happens is the Joker does exactly what you would expect the Joker to do to try to solve the problem of eliminating weight on the train. And the art is fantastic. It feels action-packed. It looks cool. And even there's a scene there with Harley Quinn, who's talking to Donald Sims, who ultimately was shown to have been originally injured by the Joker. There's a flashback showing the Joker crashing the wedding of his daughter. And there's a suggestion that this particular I'm not sure if it's a virus or what it is. It's something that Donald Sim, he created a cure for cancer, but it has powerful regenerative effects that it can ultimately even resurrect dead tissue and bring the dead back to life. That's why we end up with all these dead Joker clones. And there's a suggestion that Donald Sims may very well have resurrected his own daughter from dead. It's really well. I thought it was really well done. This has played out. This has been an interesting story. It's been well paced. I'm invested in it. I'm curious to see how it ends. It hits all the right high notes. It reminds me of the 90s, and it reminds me of some good old fashioned just hardcore Batman storytelling. I really like the portrayal of Harley Quinn, as she's a little bit more cruel than she has been. Harley Quinn is more apt to think like the Joker. This is when Harley was still a genuinely affectionate girlfriend of the Joker, and I like it. I just straight up enjoy it. And again, I want to give kudos to Mark Silvestri. I love his design of Batman. I love the black utility belt and the dark black bat symbol. I really like the color tone, and just all the layouts and the black and white art that's at the end of the issue. It's really, really gorgeous. And I can't, this is one of those ones where if it nails the landing on this story, I'm very, very particular when I buy hardcovers. But if he nails the landing on this story, I might pick up the hardcover on this. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, this series shines in its artwork. Silvestri drawing Batman, drawing Gotham City, the texture, the line work. We're used to seeing this sort of cross hatching the way he draws, and it's gorgeous. The action scenes, again, they're landing with the right sort of emotion. It feels very kinetic, and the color work by Prianto is also excellent. It just has that feel, like you said, of a classic Batman story. That being said, I'm very impressed with the writing of Silvestri and the pacing, how this plays out. Like you said, the Joker's solution for this is exactly what you would expect, and in a way, it's they Batman and Joker working together, neither by choice, neither really agreeing with what the other does to solve the problem, but ultimately they arrive at the goal. They cross the finish line and save most of the people on the train. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. It does have very much of a classic Batman feel. It's been a long time coming. Sylvester's been working on this series for a long time, and it's proving to be worth the wait. So, all right, up next, I'm not really going to have much to say about this. Poison Ivy #9, written by G. Willow Wilson. Art is by Marcio Takara. Arif Prianto does the colors. Letters are by Hassan Otsman Elhau. This is an issue that's for all the Harley Ivy ship fans. Harley shows up where Ivy's, kind of hanging out in Seattle, and they spend some time together. They end up parting ways with Harley telling Ivy she needs to come home, and Ivy considering it. But not much really happens in this issue other than Harley and Ivy hang out a lot. They kiss a lot. They're intimate in other ways. It's hinted at. So, I don't have a problem with Harley and Ivy together, but it's not something I really care to read about. It's whatever, you know. It would be no different if it was, Harley and some guy. This is an issue that celebrates her relationship with some other person, Ivy's relationship with some other person, or Harley's relationship with some other person, depending on your perspective. But other than that, yeah, not much happens, and it doesn't matter to me if Ivy and Harley are together. So I didn't really get much out of this. This doesn't really advance the narrative of who Ivy is and what she's doing, other than Harley giving some insights into Ivy, and her her power levels may not be reduced as she thinks they are. It's all a matter of perspective. So anyway, maybe you got more out of this than I did, but in my mind, this was kind of I don't want to say a throwaway issue, but it wasn't crucial to the overall story of Poison Ivy, at least for me.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't get all that much out of this issue anyway. But there's a couple of things that need to be said here, and I was going to be interested to hear your thoughts on, because, looking at the sale charts, I looked at the sale charts, the top 300 for January, and even at the sale charts. So since Poison Ivy has been a surprising sales, pleasant surprise for DC. It's not, and it's actually been doing reasonably well. I mean, up until this latest, up until issue 8 that came out in January, ranked at Poison Ivy ranked number 48, which means it sells between 30 to 50,000 copies, and Harley Quinn ranked number 94, selling between 18 and 24,000 copies. So Poison Ivy is essentially, by issue 8 here, she's essentially doubling the sales of Harley Quinn, and her sales have been slowly diminishing from issue 1. But Poison Ivy has been a surprising success, I think, or maybe I'm wrong and people can disagree with me. But it's interesting that DC hasn't had more success with Poison Ivy in the past. I'm not sure if this is something new or if it's going to be continue to be diminishing returns for Poison Ivy, because it does seem to me to be that these characters have so much in common, Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, and this issue is all about them. If you're a Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn shipper, this issue, Poison Ivy #9, is the one to get, because this isn't crazy, insane comedy like the cartoon. This is mainstream DC Universe. This entire issue is pretty much Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn doing the nasty, while Poison Ivy's sort of roommate, complains about the walls being kind of too thin. That's kind of it. And then Harley leaves at the end, and then Poison Ivy decides that she's ultimately going to leave and go back to Gotham City. That's really all that happens here, with really beautiful art by Marcio Takara. Uh, and so I think I said that name right. Yeah, Marcio Takara. The art's really fantastic. It's very well done here. But like you said, not much happens. I guess my only concern is neither Harley now nor Poison Ivy really feel like villains anymore, even slightly. Are there? Neither one of them are anti-heroes, but maybe Poison Ivy kind of is. But she's starting to lean more and more into the hero category, I think. And I'm not really sure. I'd really like to know what exactly are DC plans for these two. I mean, they have so much in common. They're both mentally ill. They both deal with it in strange ways. They both have diametrically different iterations of their own character. They've both been villains, anti-heroes, and heroes. They have a lot in common, and they happen to be lovers now. So, it's like it's like when one's normal, one's a hero, one's a villain, one's an anti-hero. And now they happen to coincide to be in the same mental space at the same time. So it's kind of an interesting. I'm not sure if DC if there's ever really a plan for these two or individually, but it's having these two together like this. I feel a little bit sorry for Stephanie Phillips, because how many issues did she go through with Harley, and she was not allowed to have Poison Ivy in the Harley Quinn series, and here at issue 9, because of the way things storytelling has gone editorially, for whatever reason, writer J. Willow Wilson can use Harley for an issue like this, because this issue, I think, is going to sell very well, and I think a lot of people are going to be flying to the comic shops to pick this issue up, because this is pretty much one long intimate scene. It's not overtly necessarily like obviously sexual, but there's a lot of the sort of the cuteness and the dialogue and the expressions of love between these two. So it's a very interesting situation, I think.
Yeah, again, it's very much fan service for all those that have missed having Harley and Ivy together. But I think when you put them together, you're very limited in the stories that you can tell. And I think editorially, DC wants to do other things with Harley and Ivy that kind of necessitate them being apart, and that's what we're seeing. But this issue is definitely fan service, bringing them back together, which is great for those that enjoy that sort of thing. Okay, up next we have Batman 132 from writer Chip Zdarsky, Mike Hawthorne on pencils, his longtime collaborator Adriano Di Benedetto on inks, Tmeyu Morey on colors, Clayton Cowell on letters, and then there's the backup with Tim Drake and Toyman that's also written by Zdarsky. That one has art by Miguel Mendoca with colors by Roman Stevens and letters by Clayton Cowell as well. We saw last issue, a couple issues ago, Failsafe shot Batman with this multiversal gun that Toyman had somehow that I think has some sort of Kryptonian technology in it. It sent Batman to this world that we got our first glimpse of last issue. It's a world where Venom is very much a part of the everyday life, and we learn a lot more about Gotham City in this version. Venom enhanced police. This Gotham has been sort of abandoned, much like in the was it No Man's Land storyline. This Gotham City's sort of been abandoned, walled off from the rest of the United States. And Arkham Asylum, of all things, is sort of the power, the one that calls the shots. And we even find out that they pump this substance into the air called crane brain gas that makes you hallucinate, and it gives the Arkham City police more of a reason, to take you in if they want. Oh, you're seeing things. Oh, we'll cart you off. So this is the world that Bruce Wayne finds himself in, and at first it seems like his main focus is to get back to his reality, his version of Gotham. But as it goes along, as the story goes along, and he starts seeing the corruption, he starts realizing what it is that the people of this version of Gotham City are facing. He almost has like an an epiphany or Zdarsky's version of Batman's origin, where he sees a bat hanging from a telephone line and decides, "Oh, Gotham, I shall become a bat." So it seems like he's not necessarily going to try to get back. He's going to do what I think is very much second nature to him, and he's going to fight for this version of Gotham City and try to set things right before he um, may try to get back home. But obviously, he's got limited resources here. He doesn't have his unlimited wealth. He doesn't have allies, as it were. He has a few, but they're nowhere near as powerful or as well equipped as they might be in his own reality. So what's going to happen from here, I don't know, but it feels like there are stakes. It feels like there are consequences, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying what Zdarsky's doing. I could have done without the reference to Batman falling from the moon, because if you guys listen to that review, I just hated that. It was so absolutely ridiculous. Thank God this is a lot more grounded, a lot more realistic.
Now
But
he's
yeah,
only
he's falling
falling
from
from. Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, he's only falling from a building here and saying, "I can survive this. I've fallen from the moon."
Yeah.
Like, come on, Zdarsky, don't remind us of that awful, awful, awful story that you told, Batman falling from the moon and surviving. One of the worst things I've ever read in a comic ever. But anyway, I'm enjoying this. The Mike Hawthorne art, if you're at all familiar with Hawthorne's art, he uses a thicker line, kind of a heavy line weight, and it really kind of suits the gravitas of the story here, and kind of the brutality of the fight scenes. So I think it works very well. I also really enjoyed when Bruce was preparing. He was putting on this disguise to go undercover at this gala, and he's standing there in front of the mirror, and you can see all the scars on his back from all the years of being Batman. I thought that was a nice touch. So anyway, I'll talk about the backup in a second, but what do you think of the main story?
Uh, I actually, I quite enjoyed this. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed how Bruce Wayne, uh, he's got to try to fit into this world, and he's doing the best that he can, and he realizes that a lot of this stuff we've seen before. He recognized, or he's got to recognize that this is a Gotham that has basically been drowned in fear. This is something where he's seen before, and you mentioned it. There's countless storylines with past Batman stories where Gotham has been taken over by Bane or Joker, or there's no man's land, or there's all kinds of nonsense or plagues and what have you. And this is no different. But we have to remember as we're reading this issue, and let's not lose sight of the fact that Failsafe sent Bruce Wayne to this particular Earth for a reason. Now, we know that Failsafe used Toyman's gun, and it's possible that Failsafe didn't know what would happen when he shot Batman with that gun, but I have a feeling Failsafe knew exactly what he was doing, because I have a theory as to who this red mask is, and I'm wondering if this red mask is actually the Bruce Wayne of this Earth. My working theory now, as I read this, is this, because this starts off, it basically has the red mask confront Harvey Dent, who is the judge who we met in an earlier issue, and this mask is actually seems to have the power to take Venom away, because a lot of the police in this Gotham City are powered up by Venom. The use of Venom is rampant, and it's only used, it looks like, by hooligans that are working for Red Mask. Now, maybe Failsafe wanted as punishment to Batman, because Failsafe thought Batman killed. So follow me on this. If Failsafe thought Batman killed, what better punishment for Batman than to send him to a planet where Batman is the killer? Send him to an Earth where Bruce Wayne, his equivalent, is the killer, is the ultimate murderer in Gotham, and that's the Red Mask. So how's that for a theory? Maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know. But I'm thinking somebody's behind that red mask. I love the fact that Bruce Wayne here wants to infiltrate the high elite part of the society, because he believes, Batman thinks that the equivalent of Bruce Wayne, because he thinks that Bruce Wayne is dead in this world, and maybe he is. I was just telling my theory, but there's this Darwin Halliday, and we don't have an equivalent of a Darwin Halliday on our Earth, but this Darwin Halliday looks an awful lot like the Joker. And this Darwin Halliday is actually the billionaire playboy, but it's actually the Joker because Joker isn't Joker. He's just a millionaire playboy. So that's kind of interesting. He confronts Selena. He confronts Punchline, who goes by a different name and goes by the name of Crimson. And then he confronts Killer Croc, and he ultimately ends up being, having to flee the tower and he manages to escape and he makes the comment about, I jump from the moon, I can survive a fall from a skyscraper, no big deal. And ultimately it leads with it ends with Batman making a concerted vow once again in this world to become Batman again. And Batman, he's basically forced to become Batman to stop the crime of this new Earth. But um, I I'm intrigued. A lot of people. This Zardowski's come under criticism for this storyline in terms of how it really deviated with this multiversal jump to this other Earth. But I kind of enjoy what he's doing here, and I'm enjoying this journey so far. And I think there's some. And regarding the backup regarding Toyman and the use of that gun that was used to shoot that failsafe used to kill Batman, I think it's very some interesting revelations in the backup as well, which I'll let you talk about.
Yeah, Red Mask, Bruce Wayne. I thought of that as well. You may very well be correct. Everybody seems to think the Bruce Wayne of this world is dead. Um, but Selena's not
Yeah.
too surprised to see Bruce Wayne and assumes it's the Bruce Wayne of this world, not Bruce Wayne of a different world.
Mhm.
Um, and that may explain why this Red Mask is telling Judge Harvey Dent, "Bring me Bruce Wayne." He wants to confront somebody. Obviously, this would be a very twisted and perverted version of Bruce Wayne. I hope it's
Yeah.
not. Honestly, I hope it's somebody else. I think it would work better, but I guess we'll see. If there's anything we know from DC editorial, they can never give us enough Batman, and they can never give us enough versions of Bruce Wayne. Batman who laughs and all that crap. So anyway, the backup, as you mentioned, we have Tim Drake. He enlists the aid of Mr. Terrific. He gets some sort of multiversal suit that has like a homing beacon in it or something, where Mr. Terrific will be able to track him through the multiverse and pull him back home. And so he gets sent to another part of the multiverse. Is it where Bruce Wayne is? Is it the reality? We don't know. But what we do know is it is wherever the Toy Man has gone with this gun. So Zdarsky's definitely leveling up the Toy Man in terms of the threat level, I guess you would say, and what exactly the Toy Man's end goal is. Don't know. He seems to want to create an army of mindless slaves. Never saw the Toy Man as somebody that wanted that before, so I guess we'll see. The art is pretty solid, but I do wish it's not. Miguel Mendoza art is absolutely fantastic most of the time. When we had Justice League Last Ride, you and I both raved about how good the art was, and the only thing different is who his colorist is here. So I think the color work is not doing this line work any favors, because it's I expect better from Miguel. It just doesn't jump off the page. It doesn't look as polished as we've seen it in the past. Um, so the art's still very very good, but I was surprised when I got to the end and I'm like, wait, this is Miguel's work, and I went and had to look at it again, and I was able to recognize it as Miguel's work, but only after looking at it twice. Um, so yeah, I don't know what else it could be other than the colors are very muted. They're a bit muddy, so it's not my favorite. There are particular panels here or there that I think work very well. The panel where Tim finds these prisoners that Toyman has yet to convert into mindless automatons, I guess. That panel's done very, very well. But I don't know. I don't think the color work's doing this any favors, but an intriguing story nonetheless. Great to see Tim Drake shining in a way that he doesn't in his regular series. So, what do you think?
Well, I will say that thanks to artist Miguel Mendoza or Mendoza, he Uh, for the first time, I actually think Bernard, Tim Drake's boyfriend, actually looks he's drawn and he actually looks like he's male. It's been a while since I looked at Bernard and thought he was definitely a man. And that's big because that's just the way Tim Drake Robin under Riley Rosmo. The art is so drastically different. And I say that somewhat tongue in cheek, but I like the respect given to Tim Drake and Bernard here. I think the relation, it looks like a healthy, functional relationship, and better than the one that's being portrayed, I think, in Tim Drake Robin. It looks visually better as well. So I like that. And now I also like I like the fact the flashback with Super John Kent when he initially confronts Toyman. Toyman shot people with these guns, and they either were evaporated, they seemed to be incinerated, or they were turned into like essentially like action figures of some kind. And now it looks like Toyman did in fact transport all these people that he shot into this other world. And it makes me wonder if maybe Toyman was creating his own world where he could have his own little hero clicks or action figures and manipulate them all he wanted. And it's interesting that when Tim Drake gets to this other world, Toyman is right there, but he doesn't appear to be, like you said, he doesn't appear to be in Gotham. And so, is this the same world? Is it different? Why weren't they on Gotham, and why isn't Toyman in Gotham City, the same place that Bruce Wayne was? What did Failsafe do differently with the weapon? Did he change the settings? Did he manipulate it? It's hard to say, but it definitely has me intrigued. And I thought, this whole issue with, I think the whole storyline is really starting to come together, and I really enjoy how the backup sort of enhances, gives you enough. It fills in the gaps of the main story as well, with Tim Drake slowly figuring out how to get to Batman, because the relationship between Bruce Wayne and Batman has been very well handled by Sardasky, in my opinion. So overall, I'm impressed, and yeah, hi, it's good to see Bernard looking so damn good.
Yeah, Bernard does look pretty good. You're right. All right, up next, The Joker, The Man Who Stopped Laughing, issue number 5. This is from writer Matthew Rosenberg. Carmine Di Gian Domenico is the artist. Romulo Fajardo Jr. on colors. Tom Napolitano on letters. We find out that one of the Jokers who shows up here was hired by the crime lord Joker to uh, impersonate him, basically. It's Clayface. He's impersonating the Joker, the crime lord Joker, and confronting the hostage, mutilated, now bald Joker. Um, if that sounds confusing, that's only because it is. It's been confusing from the start with all these different Jokers. We still don't know what's going on. We still don't know why. Does this tie into the three Jokers from Jeff Johns? It seems to, especially because we have Red Hood here hunting the Jokers for obvious reasons. They have history there. Um, the art by Carmine. I've said a lot of times that his art works best on Flash because it's so kinetic and sort of wild. But as crazy and out there as this story is, um, the art is sort of crazy and out there as well. So I guess it kind of works on that level. But I feel like this is a series where it's all going to come down to the last issue. It's all going to come down to how it wraps up. If Rosenberg nails the landing and can make this all make sense, can look back on the series and go, yeah, okay, that was well worth this kind of wild and zany ride. If it ends where things are still ambiguous and up in the air and we don't really get any answers, I'm going to feel like, what did I read and why did I read it? So, that's kind of how I feel about the Three Jokers storyline, even though it has, fantastic art from Jason Fabok. And written by Jeff Johns, who I'm a big fan of. Ultimately that was one of the biggest disappointments of 2020 or 2021, whenever it came out, because I had anticipated it for so long. Maybe that's on me for building it up in my mind. So I have faith in Matthew Rosenberg. I'm a fan of Matthew Rosenberg. I'm not a fan of the Joker. So for me to be this invested is a good thing. I just hope that it lands. And I'll say one other thing, I'll toss it over to you, Rocky. Anybody who read the previous Joker title, the one that was just the Joker from James Tynion, and was disappointed that that was actually a Jim Gordon story. I hope you're reading this because this is nothing but a Joker story. There's no other main character. Everybody else is a small supporting character. Even Red Hood shows up here. You know, he's hunting the Joker. He's kind of the this issue anyway, the B storyline, the subplot that's sort of driving the story, or is sort of our POV character, and you know, moving the story along, um, bringing in Gotham City Police Department, and sort of tying things together. But he's a distant second to the actual Joker. So if you like Joker, yeah, you definitely should be reading this. And again, kudos to Matthew Rosenberg for me to be this invested in a Joker story, because man, the character just needs to go away for a long, long time. So,
Oh,
what are your
or
thoughts?
maybe this the Joker has the real Joker has not actually been in this story at all. He shows up at the end in this issue, the real Joker on vacation somewhere, and he was at the very beginning of the story. He was at where he took hostages, and one of the hostages was shot in the head, and that hostage that was shot in the head ended up thinking he was the Joker, and we thought that was the fake Joker, and we believe he is the fake Joker. And then the other Joker, the real Joker, then must have went on vacation and then had Clayface replace him. Because at the end of this issue, Jason Todd ends up killing who he thinks is the Joker, but it's only Clayface, and he ends up getting arrested. And there's a whole things are really sort of drawn out here. You know, on the surface, I thought there's a lot of decompression in this issue. I thought there was a useless scenes between Jason Todd talking to Spoiler, with Spoiler just telling Jason Todd that Batman doesn't want you here, you should leave. Totally pointless conversation. Jason Todd, Matthew Rosenberg playing with some tropes that Jason Todd wants to really get, you know, Jason Todd has a Joker obsession and wants to kill the Joker. Like, really? Again? Isn't he over that already? I mean, that's been done to death. But regardless, the fun in this
No,
issue,
no pun intended, right?
yeah, exactly. The fun in this issue, though, is the dialogue between the two Jokers. And I thought that this was the real Joker and the fake Joker, and I was trying to figure out who was the fake one. And I got to be honest with you, I was I was surprised when one of them was Clayface. Maybe some people could have guessed that, but I was really surprised because both the Jokers here seem to get one up on each other. You know, they met, and the one Joker was hit himself in sort of a jail in a warehouse, and the warehouse was rigged. He started a fire, and then the other Joker had some acid in his gun and thought it was water, and then they had their verbal repertoire, their verbal sparring back and forth with some bad humor, bad jokes, typical what you expect from the Joker, only for us to discover at the end that, you know, the real Joker comes back to, you know, to finish off the what you think is the fake, and it ends up being it's actually Clayface, and then the other Joker ends up being, you think, hit by a train, and Clayface reports that to the real Joker, who's apparently on vacation. So we've been dealing with two Jokers. One's Clayface, one's fake, and the real Joker's on vacation. So your initial inclination in thinking that maybe there's three Jokers, Jace, you weren't wrong, although it's not the three Jokers from the Jeff Johns run. But I don't think. But in any event, if there's a lot of moving parts here, but oddly enough, goddamn, I was critical of this early on. The second issue I really didn't like, and this is one of those series that's kind of been growing on me like a fungus. You know, it's kind of irritating to me, but at the same time, I like scratching it, you know, because it itches. And so, yeah, I find myself slowly intrigued as to how the hell this is going to end. And you hit the nail on the head. If Rosenberg can nail this landing, because he doesn't always nail some landings well, but we've enjoyed most of his runs. We've enjoyed, and my favorite run of his continues to be his Grifter 6-issue run in the first 6 issues of Batman Urban Legends, The Long Con. That still remains my favorite. But if he nails a landing on this, I'll be pleasantly surprised. And but I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, 100%. The backup is a Giganta story with the Joker wanting to date Giganta. It's actually my favorite we've had of the backup so far. But you know, like they all do, this it really gets weird and goes off the rails with the Joker having these little boils on his face where little mini Jokers erupt out of him, and Giganta's as disgusted as we are watching it and walks away for her date with the demon. So yeah, I
You're
mean,
you're
it's as ludicrous as it sounds, but I don't know. I kind of this was a Joker that felt like more normal to me than the most of these backups where it's been just absolute insanity. But I can relate to a guy who has a crush on a girl and wants to go out with her. So I thought it was kind of humanizing in a way.
yeah, the unifying factor of the backup appears to be almost like a Silver Age Joker looking for a date. He's been wooing Zatanna, Power Girl, now Giganta, and he's and I think it was Batgirl was one of them too. It's really odd, and isn't it interesting that I think the last issue was you and I breezed over the one where the Joker got pregnant. We actually didn't even give it much of a review. If you recall, you and I sort of breezed over it. We barely mentioned it. You and I, we barely gave 10 words to it between the two of us. And then it explodes on the internet. And I'm thinking to myself, of all the things that you and I talk ad nauseum about the issue, and we breeze over the backup, and everybody's talking about the backup.
I had
I just
nothing to
shook.
say.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, it was
really?
absolutely ludicrous. Yeah. So
Anyway, that's
yeah.
how it
Anyway,
works. I guess.
let's move on to your book of the week, I guess. Static Shadows of Dakota, issue number 1. This is basically the second season of Static for Milestone Returns. Heroes and Myths, it's entitled, written by Nicholas Draper Ivy and Vita Ayala. Art by Nicholas Draper Ivy, letters by Ann Rule Design. And for those not familiar, don't realize, Nicholas Draper Ivy came on as a co-artist for the first season of Static, about halfway through or a few issues in, and now he's joining with Vita Ayala. They were the writer for the first season, so they've got a co-writer here on this one. So yeah, give us your thoughts. What did you love about it?
Well, first of all, the art is absolutely fantastic. It's hands down the best art of any comic book this week from DC. Just absolutely fantastic, in my opinion. Nicholas Draper Ivy is both the co-writer and the artist, and boy, does it show. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because there's something that for writers that also are doing the art, maybe that there's just an advantage that they have because they have a greater visualization of how they want to portray the scenes here. But I'm telling you, man, this is first thing I want to give a compliment to is all the covers, all the alternate covers look fantastic. They look fantastic. They look really, really good. But cover A is the best. Looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, with Virgil Hawkins, i.e., aka Static, riding on a surfboard of lightning. It looks amazing. The way that Nicholas Draper Ivy conveys lightning. Anybody who draws Shazam moving forward should take note, or Black Adam, because it's absolutely amazing. Also, I love that we almost have sort of like a who's who page previously in Static. It explains and gives a nice synopsis of what happened in season 1. It's so refreshing to see that, and it explains it so succinctly. Basically, we've got a protest, a teenage protest against. It's unimportant. Tear gas is used by a corporation. The tear gas is an experimental gas. It gives various teenagers involved in the protest superpowers. Some of them die, some of them don't. And the first season of Static involved basically Virgil Hawkins and his friends essentially defeating a black ops operation, a black site operation of the government trying to take control of all the what they call the Big Bang babies, or the Bang babies from that protest, who have developed meta powers. This is sort of like X-Men meets the Hood. That's what I like about it. This is in Dakota City, and this takes place in the Milestone universe. Obviously, it's not in the mainstream DC universe. And to me, it's like dealing with the mutants. And in fact, there's even one page where Virgil Hawkins, he's downtown, he's befriending a homeless person, and he's actually wearing a cap that has an X on it. I can't help but think that's a little bit of a of a hint that it's similar to the X-Men in many ways. These are kids with developing powers. They're afraid of their powers. They're not sure how to control them. And in fact, there are civilian terrorist groups. There's a civilian terrorist group that's out to get and kill these bang babies, as they're calling them, these young kids who have developed these powers from the protest. And one of them loses control in this issue, and it causes an explosion. And I'm telling you, the scene of the explosion looks absolutely amazing. It looks so real, just how it's artistically rendered, and the just the shading and the coloring. It looks impactful, and through the mist and through all the smoke and the debris comes these very intimidating looking terrorists who are basically out to kill bang babies. And thank God Static arrives on the scene. It looks absolutely, this is an action packed issue. I love this. And it's a straightforward plot, but at the same time, you can feel the stakes. You know that he's there not only to protect Dakota City, but to protect his fellow friends, many of which, some of which he probably doesn't even know, have developed powers because of the gas that was leaked by Alvaro Industries in the first season of this story. So well done. I'm really enjoying this, and again, I would love to own some pages on this, because the art. Oh man, there's one page that looks amazing, which shows him riding on a surfboard of lightning. He's carrying a young girl in his arms, and meanwhile the terrorist has taken aim at him. It looks absolutely incredible, and and he throws a car at him, and it's just this is epic. These are epic scenes, and I really thoroughly enjoyed this. I wish this was getting more attention. This was, um, I I almost feel bad to say I was surprised by how good this was, because I don't think that Vita Ayala in that entire first season had an issue as good as this opening issue. So whatever she's doing, whatever she's learning, I hope it keeps up. And her collaboration with the artist and her co-writer here, again, Nicholas Draper Ivy and Vita Ayala, kudos to them. They did an amazing job. And it ends, we got two villains on the scene here. We got a dark villain who has an agenda that wants to get all these bang babies, these kids with powers. And we also have a civilian terrorist group that wants to wipe them out. So it's got echoes of the X-Men, but it feels unique and fresh to me. It feels different, and I really enjoy it, because quite frankly, I can't get into the X-Men because I'm too goddamn confused when I read the X-Men. And so this is perfect. If you're DC and you like the X-Men, but you find X-Men a little bit too convoluted, come over and check out Static. So
Yeah, remember Vita's non-binary, so they.
I
Yeah,
apologize to Vita.
yeah, I know you always
Sorry,
do
I've
that,
done that
but
before. It's not my
yeah,
first time I've made that mistake.
yeah. I would love to have some pages of this as well. I echo your sentiments about the art. However, I doubt there are pages, because I'm pretty sure Nicholas Draper Ivy is working digitally here,
Fair enough.
which is part of why it works so well. Because it portrays the action, and the whole thing just has this sense of like being really cool and really fast moving. And again, it kind of suits the tone of the story that these two creators are telling. It also captures the feel of Static's powers very, very well, right? Like it's very kind of fast moving and on the edge of being out of control, and that's sort of what the art is like. So yeah, I don't have a lot more to add to that, because you summed it up very, very well. I echo your sentiments about the covers, although I think the Dan Hip cover is probably my favorite. I'm not as big of a Dan Hip, yeah, that one there, fan as some people are, but I don't know, that one just is a lot of fun. Um, and I also agree with you 100% about the recap page. It was it was done so well, and yeah, we read it all. But if somebody, the first season, but if somebody asked me to sum it up, it's not so recent in my mind that I could have summed it up as well
Yeah.
as this page did. So even having read the first season, I read this page, was like, oh yeah, I remember. Yep, sounds good, and was able to dive right in. And really get a lot out of this. So I do enjoy, or did enjoy, and I think it's purposeful, and I think it's a nice change, very welcome. The Virgil Hawkins, the Static that we're getting in the first issue of this season, it does seem like there's a maturity there, right, between the end of with everything you went through in the first season and the last issue of season one, and this issue, he's grown, he's matured a little bit, more of a leader, more more confident, more take charge, and I enjoy that. Right, it's completely believable. Some time has passed, and it definitely seems like he still has a lot to learn. Don't get me wrong, and these two creators are going to take him on that journey because even after the events of this particular issue, he's starting to realize the stakes are higher than maybe even he realized before, even with that new level of maturity. So he's definitely coming into his own, and Static's an interesting character, right? Like he's been around for over 30 years.
Yeah.
92, I think, was when the Milestone universe debuted the first time around. But he's not a character that's necessarily grown or been aged up, if you know what I mean. Look at the characters of Young Justice, right? Like Rocky and I have talked about them in recent time and how they're sort of the red-headed stepchildren of the DC universe. Nobody knows what to do with them. They've sort of been replaced again, right? Like if you look at Tim Drake, Robin, now you have Damian Wayne. There's another generation, but the older generations are still there, and DC doesn't seem to know what to do with them. Static hasn't suffered from that, but in a way, he suffered from stagnation. The Milestone characters weren't around for a long time, so they had the opportunity to tell stories and evolve them. Like, could we see a Virgil Hawkins that eventually graduates from high school and moves on to college and like lives his life, grows up, so to speak? Um, I'm more able to picture that now with
Mm.
this change, this growth from season one to season two, even in only one issue. So it's something interesting to think about, at least. All right.
Yeah.
Up next, we have Gotham City Year One, issue number 5, written by Tom King. Pencils are by Phil Hester. Inks by Eric Gapster. Colors by Jordi Belair. Um, some revelations here that uh, may not be welcome for fans of the Wayne family, as it were. Basically, we're told here by King that um, that Richard Wayne he he squandered the Wayne fortune. Apparently, he has no money. It all comes from his wife, um, and he doesn't have any freedom. He feels like to be able to do what he wants to do, and he basically planned the kidnapping so he could have the ransom for his own daughter, and then left everything to be pinned on Queenie when things went wrong. And so that's what we're told, but that may not necessarily be the truth. It may have been Constance Wayne who was behind everything in the first place because Richard basically not smart enough to plan anything. And, uh, she was, sort of manipulating him all along because she knows that all he does is go out and he's only good for two things. We're told Richard Wayne's only good for two things: womanizing, going out there and having flings and wasting money. So who's actually behind the kidnapping? We're not exactly sure. We just know Queenie's being set up to take the fall for it. But regardless of that, the Wayne family itself, whether it's Constance, whether it's Richard Wayne, no matter what, any way you slice it, uh, they don't come across as looking very good. Gotham City royalty, they come across as scumbags. Like really, their own daughter, their own
Yeah.
daughter, their own baby
Yeah.
girl. And so that, yeah, I could see that rubbing some people the wrong way. Um, and more fuel for the fire of the people that don't like Tom King. How dare you? And it adds some interesting context to the framing story of Slam Bradley on his hospital bed, deathbed, whatever. Telling this story to Bruce Wayne, telling the story to Batman. So yeah, this is a dirty story. This is crime. This is what crime noir is. And regardless of whether you like the fact that Tom King is disparaging the Wayne family name in this fictional story, I'll remind everybody, whether that bothers you or not, this is crime noir. This is what crime noir is. This is the style of storytelling that crime noir is. So I'm really enjoying it, and I really enjoyed that Jeff Spokes cover too, where Slam Bradley's kind of walking in the rain. I thought that cover was fantastic. So
Excellent.
anyway, what were your thoughts? Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
it was Tony Chastain does that cover. So
yeah. The,
anyway,
the the alternate covers here are fantastic. Cover A is obviously, and the Phil Hester looks great. I don't know, and Tony Shasteen is the cover B, and then cover C is, I'm not sure who does
yeah,
cover C.
that one's Jeff Spoke. That one's got to
Jeff
be Jeff
Stokes.
Spokes.
Yeah, that's that. They're all really good. So it's I got to tell you, I've been enjoying this series, and surprise, surprise, I really like how Tom King does crime noir here. Look, the bottom line is that yeah, this is Tom King once again. He's taking characters that maybe you think you know, and maybe he there's some darkness and gloom and doom here, but damn, it is Gotham City and it fits. And this is an enjoyable story. I'm enjoying the hell out of this. Now, if you're, I'm a fan of Batman, and I don't like his Batman, but I like the way he's portraying his grandparents. Richard and Constance, both of them are very bad Waynes. They're not very good parents. They don't really love each other, and they're manipulative. And their daughter Helena is kidnapped. It's all planned by Richard Wayne. But then it looks like some revelations in this issue. It looks like Helena Wayne herself might be the mastermind behind everything. This is a Richard Wayne who has pissed away his fortune, drank it away, partied it away. But it's Constance Wayne's, the fortune that she inherited from her family is what has kept the illusion that that Richard Wayne still has his power, still has his affluence. And that's something that Richard Wayne is painfully aware of. And Queenie, the African American character who Richard Wayne has an affair with, who basically he whispers sweet nothings in her ear. He basically hires her to help coordinate fabricate the heist and sort of plan the whole thing. It looks as if while that was going on, Queenie was the one. She did end up stealing the ransom money, but then it looks as if perhaps it's hinted at the end that it was in fact Constance Wayne that went and actually kidnapped her own daughter from Queenie's possession, because Queenie did have full intention, and it looks like Richard and Queenie had full intention of in fact returning the child, because it was all a big scheme for Richard Wayne to get money essentially from his wife, because the money could only come from Constance because Richard Wayne had no money. So the only way to get money from his wife was to kidnap their daughter, because the only one who could afford to pay the ransom was Constance Wayne, his wife, whom he clearly stopped loving quite some time ago. And I continue, and it's worth noting that, this takes place in the 1960s. And Tom King recently said in an interview, I believe it might even have been yours when you interviewed him, that this is when Tom King wrote this. He loves writing this. He loves writing crime noir. He's thinking of the 1940s, even though this story takes place in the 1960s. And if this story takes place in the 1960s, Batman, Bruce Wayne was likely born. I guess I know this doesn't take place in continuity, but in theory, Batman could be the next child born to Constance and Richard Wayne, unless they're the grandparents. But it's Slam Bradley slept with Constance Wayne, and if she's pregnant, it's theoretically possible that Slam Bradley could be the father of Bruce Wayne, the real father of Bruce Wayne, or the real grandfather of Bruce Wayne, depending on when Batman is born. And you could argue that nonsense all you want. But anyways, it's kind of intriguing. I like thinking about it. And if you're someone who doesn't like Tom King, you're just going to dismiss it anyway. But I enjoy good storytelling. This is good storytelling. And this is I think just as interesting as this is just as interesting as the Lindbergh kidnapping. It even has a little bit more thrown in there. So I, for one, I don't mind when Tom King draws inspiration from other stories and other world events and other areas of literature, as long as he tells a good story. And he's done that here. And I think that. I know that he loves, I love Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' work. And I think I could definitely get behind Tom King, continuing to write this kind of story of Gotham Year One moving forward. So I'm really curious to see how this all wraps up at the end, and the extent to which Constance Wayne may have been involved in the death of her own daughter. So this is a very tragic story, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is the story of Gotham City, going from that pillar of shining light to the Gotham City we know, and it's certainly doing that, right? Like in the background, there's riots, right, with the baby being found. People are burning Gotham City to the ground, looting and rioting and whatnot. It's a far cry from the ham-fisted fascist police department that held up Gotham as this shining light, this beacon upon the hill. So King is doing what he set out to do in terms of telling us how Gotham City went from being very light and bright, sort of like Metropolis, to the dark Gothic city that we expect it to be. So, all right, up next, they don't have a consolidated credits page, so I'm gonna have to flip through really fast. Lazarus Planet, Next Evolution, issue 1, another one of the anthologies for Lazarus Planet. The first story is called The Vigil, See No Evil. Ram V is the writer. Lalit Kumar Sharma is the artist. Rain Barretto on colors. Dave Sharp on letters. Gives us a new team called The Vigil. We also see Red Hood show up in this story. Second story stars Flatline, and it is written. Let me get to the last page here with the credits. Flatline Elevation, written by Brandon T. Snyder. Art is by Laura Braga. Colors by Matt Herms. Letters by Troy Petrie. The third story has Deadeye, Amanda Waller's nephew, who seems like a cross between Deadshot and, I don't know, Mr. Bones or something. Uh, that one's written by Chuck Brown. Pencils by Aletha Martinez. Inks by Mark Morales. Colors by Alex Guermez and letters by Troy Petrie. And then the last story stars Red Canary, written by Delilah S. Dawson. Art and colors by Brandt and Stein. And letters are by Troy Petrie. And I think that's Ted Brandt and Rose Stein for art and colors. So, yeah, this, like, what can I say? None of the stories are bad. I'm curious to learn more about the Vigil, which is a 3-person team, and what their powers might be. They're very intriguing visually, if nothing else. So we're told to stay tuned this year because more is coming soon from the Vigil. So maybe they're going to get a limited series. Flatline, we've seen Flatline before. We kind of know what she's about. What's intriguing here is this story could be giving us the return of Ra's al Ghul, so that may be important down the line. And last page of that story, oh, so not the end, we're told. The Deadeye story, I'm not that familiar with Deadeye, but I do like his look visually. But Amanda Waller shows up in the story, so you know how I feel about that. But Deadeye, again, it could be an interesting character. I would like to learn more. This is the first I'm seeing of him, but he must have been around before. It's not his first appearance or anything. I'm just not familiar with him. And I do really enjoy the art on that one. Aletha Martinez does a fantastic job. The Red Canary, I just didn't really care for. I don't care for her as a character. I think we sort of have enough of these Bat family type characters. I know she's more of a Red Canary fan or what have you, and obviously her name is based on Red Canary. But she's in that same vein of Clown Hunter, where she has no powers. Um, her costume is kind of meh, and yet somehow she's out there fighting against these menaces that, honestly, if this were real, would kill her in no time flat. It's just not that interesting to me at all. The art's fine, the storytelling's fine, but it's just not a character I have any interest in learning any more about. So, but ultimately, overall, other than this just being a preview for more stories to come of these characters in the dawn of DC later this year, this has little to nothing to do with Lazarus Planet and is not needed to be read in any way, shape, or form to further the story of Lazarus Planet. If you're like, oh, I want to get the whole Lazarus Planet story, you can still skip this. You're missing nothing. Nothing. This feels a little bit like a money grab, to be honest, throwing Lazarus Planet trade dress on this one shot. So that's about as nice as I can be about it. What do you think, Rocky?
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna cushion the blow here because the bottom line here is that this is um, every single one of these characters, all of them, will be written better at some point in the future, as opposed to how they're written now. Because quite frankly, right now they're boring. Red Canary is a character that I have absolutely no interest in, and she's boring. Her origin is ridiculous. She was, I mean, we met her basically in Dark Crisis, and apparently she decided to become a superhero because when she was in the guitar store playing the guitar, somebody came in the guitar store and tried to rob the guitar and tried to rob the store, and she beat them up with her brown belt, and she really likes Black Canary, and that's her origin. And then in the midst of Dark Crisis, she decides to go and fight a hyena in the presence of Black Canary on a school bus. I mean, I mean, I was going to say I can't make this stuff up, and I can't. But it's in the comic, but it's just absurd. It's just these characters being introduced in these haphazard ways. It just does it such a huge injustice to these characters. But they will become more interesting when they're written better. At some point, we will be given a better origin for Red Canary than the absurd one we get now, or maybe she'll be better developed, because this has CW written all over it, and I mean CW in the worst possible sense that I can say that, and I'll just leave it at that. The Vigil by Ram V. I can't believe I'm saying this, but wow, Ram V, this has got to be your worst writing endeavor for DC since you've been to DC. The Vigil. I've got absolutely no interest in any of these characters. It's wasted. It's Red Hood hopping around with narration, and all Red Hood is talking about how awesome the Vigil is. We learn really nothing about them other than the fact that they're stopping some bad guy using Lazarus resin to build a particle propulsion engine, and they give him the peace symbol, but it doesn't mean peace. It means V for Vigil. Again, this isn't an exciting way to introduce these characters in my mind. But I mean, I suppose what else are you going to do? They clearly, what DC has done here with Lazarus Planet, it is clearly a way that they've used these anthologies, which are loosely connected to the Lazarus Planet. They're only connected by rain. It reminds me of the Red Skies during the original Crisis, where we had original Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, but the only thing related to the Crisis in the story was the fact that the skies were red, and that was the ongoing criticism. Oh, more red skies here. Oh no, we got Lazarus rain. That's the only connection that these have with that, and I can't help but to be disappointed. The character that's the most well developed and the best story, in my opinion, is with Flatline. Flatline. It's really weird. Flatline, I thought, already had the power to talk to the dead. Now she says in this story that she has a new power and she can talk to the dead. I thought she could talk to the dead anyway. I don't know what her new power is. Also, huge continuity glitch. She fights Abu, who's Ra's al Ghul henchman. Abu was killed in Detective Comics, but she fights him here.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty clear to me that Detective Comics run by Ram V is so completely out of continuity. He's just doing whatever the hell he wants.
Well,
there's so many continuity glitches in that detective run. It's not even funny.
But fair enough. It's just one of those little irritation things, and I realize you can explain it away, whatever. Maybe this took place in the whatever before that the events took place, whatever. But it's just it didn't need to be Abu that Flatline fights. It could have been anybody, because it's just Flatline. The ashes of Ra's al Ghul are talking to her. The spirit of Ra's al Ghul is talking to her, and then basically we have an entire wasted issue. Every single page is a waste of time, because all it is. She ends up talking to the spirit of Ra's al Ghul, saying that we have much to discuss. So that's it. That's it. And then, and also not the end. Well, when is it going to be continued to? Like, it's not all of these stories are continued at some future point. But what? And because it's not obvious, not even in the solicitations, that we're going to be seeing any of this. And the solicitations are 3 or 4 months ahead. So are we supposed to remember this? Are people supposed to pick this up and be excited? And if we're supposed to be excited, I really should feel more excited than I am. And that's why I'm so disappointed in these stories, because none of this hooks me. I'm not curious about any of these characters, quite frankly. Maybe a tad interested about the spirit of Ra's al Ghul coming back, because at least Ra's al Ghul is connected to the Lazarus resin. He's connected to the Lazarus pits. So seeing the spirit of Ra's al Ghul is interesting, but there wasn't enough of that connection drawn out in that particular story. But In any event, there was. Am I missing something? Ah, yes. We got to talk about. I want to talk about Amanda Waller. For the first time, Amanda Waller is talking to her nephew. Now, I'm pretty sure this is the first time we heard that Amanda Waller had a nephew. I've never heard of Deadeye before. This is a first for me. And apparently, she refers to Deadeye as her Argus ghost. So he's been undercover in Argus, and he's been secretly working for his aunt Amanda Waller, and he was really upset in this issue because Amanda Waller, who he psychically determines is on Earth 3. So Amanda Waller's on Earth 3. So is this the Amanda Waller that's been in the other issues of DC Comics? But Amanda Waller's back on Earth 3? Or is this the Earth 3 Amanda Waller? This is not really clear. And you and I read, you and I should not be confused about that. What is Amanda Waller? And she's actually playing chess as she's talking to him, which is even more weird. Because usually when you play chess, that's supposed to be symbolic of like chess moves and everything else. But in any event, this is just all a glorified way of introducing us to Deadeye. Another character that, again, might be interesting. And how is he different than Amanda Waller? Well, he exercises compassion and he refuses to kill this character called Amalgam, who's called Everyman. But then at the end of the issue, Everyman changes his name to Amalgam, and Deadeye refuses to kill him. And that's really the end of that issue. And again, I'm not, I guess it's interesting that we have another character. We have the nephew of Amanda Waller, but it's just another character that could pop up in any issue of Suicide Squad once we inevitably get another Suicide Squad issue. So again, these things are so disconnected when the stories here are like this. I don't know why we bother. I'd rather just have a more drawn out, organically created character than one that's just sort of like puked on the page, how I feel this has been. So this whole Lazarus anthology has been one massive disappointment for me, pretty much. It's only the first issue that's any good, and at least the Omega issue, which will end the series, you just have to read Lazarus Planet Alpha, Lazarus Planet Omega, and unfortunately it still doesn't end with Omega. It'll end in Monkey Prince number 12, but we'll get to that eventually.
But yeah, I mean, you and I both have been saying all along, none of these anthologies are really necessary. Could have just been Alpha and Omega.
Yeah.
Monkey Prince. So speaking of Monkey Prince, we have issue number 11 here, written by Jean Luen Yang. Bernard Chang is the artist. Marcelo Maiello on colors. Adriano Lucas on colors for the flashback. And Hanning as the artist on the flashback. Janice Chang on letters. I think the most interesting thing for me is the fact that the Ultra Humanite is Monkey Prince's grandfather. That just opens up so many interesting storylines and really helps root Marcus in the DC universe proper. I feel like when this series first started out, despite the fact that Batman showed up and each issue we had other co-stars, Aquaman was there for Superman or Supergirl, that sort of thing. It did feel a little separate, right? But having him tied in with Ultra Humanite from his very beginnings really does cement him as an interesting hero, part of the DC universe overall. And like I said, the fact that the Ultra Humanite knows that Marcus is the Monkey Prince, knows his ties to the Monkey King, Ultra Humanite being, very smart, even gives Superman a run for his money. Marcus is not in a good place when this issue ends. His father knows who he is, or grandfather knows who he is, and even has injected him with some nanites that perhaps can control him if he doesn't go along with what his grandfather wants. So that's intriguing. That's intriguing. And again, it definitely feels like the final issue, but that's only because the final issue 12, does wrap up the Lazarus Planet event, as Rocky said. So yeah, I'm enjoying this. The art has been solid throughout. Bernard Chang's a very talented artist, and this entire creative team has done a fantastic job of introducing a new character and making him feel pretty important to the DC universe overall. They've established him relatively quickly Um, I wouldn't be surprised to see Monkey Prince, really take a foothold in the DCU going forward. So kudos to everybody involved here. I think they've succeeded with what they set out to do. What are your thoughts?
Uh, uh, the storytelling for Monkey Prince has been very well done. And this has been one of the most pleasant surprises because, at the beginning, you and I we enjoyed Monkey Prince. But I think both of us, maybe more me than you, but maybe you as well. I was a little bit maybe confused because I don't know if you were as familiar. You were a little bit maybe more familiar with the Monkey Prince mythology than I was. It took me a while to get used to it, but I'm glad I had the patience, and frankly, I'm glad that we do review DC Comics because I'm not sure I would have stuck with this series, buying the physical copies as I have, if I didn't read it and review it like I have. And I'm so glad I did because I feel like I've been rewarded. I've been rewarded every issue, and this is something where the story is coming through. And I really like, kudos to DC for taking kind of a big risk by making Monkey King and the Monkey King mythology a central part of the Lazarus planet and the Batman v Robin and flowing out World's Finest. It's essentially it's a centerpiece of that storyline, and it's been very well. And it's interesting that here tying him, I mean, his grandfather being the Ultra Humanite. The origin here is particularly interesting because it looks like Marcus's parents, Winston and Laura, who are themselves sort of like mad scientist couple, and we thought that Marcus was their son, but he's actually an orphan, and Marcus is actually a son of the Sun Wukong Monkey King, who Marcus ends up meeting in the Phantom Zone because his grandfather, the Ultra Humanite, sends him into the Phantom Zone because his grandfather, the Ultra Humanite, way about 10 years ago, or whatever, when Marcus was still young, Ultra Humanite has been trying to get the Monkey King out of the Phantom Zone to control the Monkey King and basically rule the world, very naively believing that he could control the Monkey King. But his attempts to do that were thwarted by Superman, by a younger Superman at that time, and it ended with a young infant Marcus being found by Winston and Laura, who who basically raised the child, and they told the Ultra Humanite that they had adopted him, and they sort of kept that secret. And so it's interesting that the Monkey Prince and the Monkey King meet each other in the Phantom Zone, and the Monkey King doesn't believe that Marcus is actually his son that was basically plucked from the Phantom Zone all those years ago. And so it's kind of interesting there. And as you said, Ultra Humanite, when he finally gets Monkey King out of the Phantom Zone, he implants him with a compliance device. He puts a compliance device on Marcus with some nanites to maybe create pain for him if he doesn't do what he says, and so that will come into play in future issues. So how will the Ultra Humanites' machinations to try to control the Monkey King come to fruition? The Monkey King sent the Monkey Prince Marcus back to Earth to try to ultimately defeat the demon Nezha as part of his test, and this is all sort of coming together. And if you're I would encourage people, completely ignore the Lazarus Planet anthologies. Just pick up Lazarus Planet Alpha and buy Monkey Prince issues 10, 11, and this issue 11 and issue 12, and get Lazarus Planet Omega. That's what I would recommend, because that's 5 issues. You don't need to get any of the Lazarus Planet anthologies at all. In fact, you might want to avoid them altogether because they have nothing to do with the central thrust of the narrative. But I'm impressed with this, and I like the art, and I think it works. I think it works well, and it ends appropriately, saying that this is the end of the beginning. And so the future looks bright for Monkey King, and I'm going to be a regular reader of this series moving forward. Oh, actually, it does end on issue 12, doesn't it? So
Yeah, but we're going to see more of the Monkey Prince in this, later this year. I wouldn't be surprised if you got an ongoing. Would not be surprised by that at
yeah,
all. In fact, I
yeah,
almost expect it at this point. So,
yeah, no, for
all
sure.
right, there is one other single issue we didn't cover. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Issue number 120 is out, and there's a couple of hardcover, one hardcover, one trade. Swamp Thing Volume 3, The Parliament of Gears trade paperback, which collects the final third of Rom V's Swamp Thing run. And then we have DC Universe by Dwayne McDuffie hardcover. Dwayne McDuffie, who tragically died at a very young age, complications from surgery. A few of his projects here. We've got Action Comics 847, The Demon 26 through 29, Impulse 60, JLA Showcase 80-page Giant #1, Batman Gotham Knights 27, Sins of Youth Kid Flash / Impulse #1, and Firestorm the Nuclear Man 33 through 35. So if you're so inclined, if you're a fan of Dwayne McDuffie, highly encourage you to check that out. If you're not a fan of him, I still highly encourage you to check it out because he was a fantastic writer. So we already know what your book of the week was. I'm going to give my nod to Gotham City Year One, #5. Although, as we have come to expect with Tom King work, it will rub some people the wrong way, especially those that kind of put the Wayne family up on a pedestal. Every family has skeletons in their closet, and Tom King is certainly showing the Waynes are no different. And I thought the Phil Hester art, as it has been throughout, has been fantastic. Very crime noir in its tone, and it's what I said. It's what I say a lot. Like, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Phil when he does superhero work, and I always say I feel like his work is better suited for like crime noir. Well, that's exactly what he's doing here, and he's nailing it.
Yes.
So, yeah. Anything you want to add about Static? Your book of the
Yeah,
week?
well, Static is my pick of the week. Fantastic work by art and co-writing by Nicholas Draper-Ivey and with Vita Ayala. It's very well done, and I will give I want to give a runner-up shout out to uh, the Monkey Prince. The Monkey Prince, a runner-up for Monkey Prince. So between Static and Monkey Prince, I was quite impressed, and I enjoyed Gotham too. Great pick. Those are probably my three. I'd probably go Static, Monkey Prince, and Gotham year one. But yeah, no. Overall, like I said, the majority of comics I thought were slight majority. I wasn't. I thought could be better, but we got a solid good three in there that I enjoyed. When Batman and the Deadly Duo was actually pretty damn good too. So maybe four.
Yeah, I thought the regular issue of Batman was good too. It just, I
Yeah,
mean, the
yeah,
Lazarus for me, that Lazarus planet really brought it down. And Poison Ivy again, like I'm sure, like you were saying, it's going to sell great because so many people are big fans of the Harley Ivy relationship, and that's great too. That's not I'm not the target audience for that one, So for me, those probably were the two that, yeah, I won't say they're disappointments because they were exactly what I expected them to be, but they just weren't for me. But everything else I thought was really solid. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to Rocky's channel on YouTube if you don't already. Just head over to YouTube, comic space boom ! Ring the notification bell, leave some comments on this video, and be sure you subscribe so you don't miss any other content. And if you're not already subscribed to the Comic Source and you want to be sure not to miss any of our audio only content, just go to wherever you get your podcast from, do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. So that's going to do it for this episode. We appreciate you all joining us as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
catch you later.